What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. This is our second episode, and this week we are going to be analyzing the Strickland versus Hall card going down Saturday night. And we're going to get into all 13 of those fights shortly, but we do have to do a quick victory lap on last week because last week was the first formal episode of the podcast, and we started off on a great note. Ozzy, you want to start? You want to just give a quick recap of our results, say how many units you won on Bet MMA, and just give a quick, minute or two synopsis of the card?
Yeah, sure. It was definitely, really solid night, clean night overall. On cards like this where, underdogs are cashing and you have, like I had mentioned before, just very competitive matchups, nothing that's, very much over minus 200. I think that's kind of where we excel or I excel. So the Elkins fight, went really well with him surviving. I'm sure some people were able to pick him up at plus money in between rounds. Obviously TJ, cashed as an underdog in the main event. Brendan Allen, amazing fight by him. Really easy win for him as a dog. Imavov as well. Arce with an easy win. Belbita. So really good night overall. And I think most of the fights kind of played out how we were anticipating for the most part.
And would you win on Bet MMA again?
Just over 10 units. Just
Something like
winning. Yeah, winning on all straight money line plays, which is what I try to focus on more so. And it was good. But it's all about these competitive fights, and staying on value plays, not laying the juice, avoiding some of these parlays, and get that's long term success. At the end of the day, you'll find.
yeah, we both have a pretty similar strategy with going mostly underdogs, and it pays off on a card like that. I think 7 of the last 8 fights ended with the underdogs winning. Got some lucky decisions there, some fortunate judging on a few fights. But
Sure.
if you go and listen to last week's podcast, I honestly think like every single fight, we might not have been 100% accurate, but I think we were like 75% accurate or higher on every fight. We both picked Belbita decision. We both picked Sajara inside the distance. We both said Arce was a comfortable favorite. And then pretty much all the last 8 fights we said were dog or pass. 7 of the 8 dogs won. The one favorite that won was Yanez at minus 250. He did win the fight, but I don't think he fully covered minus 250 there. So,
I
I mean,
did pick Yanez TKO round 2 as
yeah, there
well.
you go.
So
Another act. Yeah, I was pretty off in that fight. That was probably my worst prediction of the card, but
yeah.
6 unit profit for me on Bet MMA. Some great live betting spots there as well. And it was just a great card top to bottom. So with that being said, we're gonna get into the first of 13 fights, and we're gonna start things off in the welterweight division with Orion Cosce and Phil Rowe. Cosce is the minus 143 favorite, and Rowe is plus 123. So I already have a bet tracked on this fight. I have 0.75 units on Rowe plus 135, I think. I saw some people talking about this line, decided to tape it, and I was reminded about how bad of a fighter Orion Cosce is. He's just too raw. A lot of his wins are over low level competition. And I think he did have a good win on the contender series against Dixon, but a lot of that had to do with Dixon gassing out. But you still got to give Cosce some credit for having good cardio in that fight. But I still saw some weaknesses from him there. His striking looked pretty basic from the southpaw stance, not really much depth to his game. And he also got pushed against the cage pretty easily. He got taken down a few times. And Dixon doesn't really have a top game, but Phil Rowe, I was actually surprised about how good of a grappler he was rewatching some of his footage. In the Green fight, although he struggled in the striking versus Green, he had a few good moments, a few key reversals on the ground. He was able to pass and mount a few times. So Rowe is actually a better top position grappler than I expected. And I kind of give Rowe advantages everywhere here. I think he is the more experienced striker. I think he's going to be a little more comfortable when the fight's in the feet. I think Rowe is the better overall grappler, probably has the wrestling ability to take him down. But even if Cosce chooses to take him down, Rowe can really easily reverse position like he did on Gabe Green a few times there. Some really nice like half guard sweeps that he pulled off. So I kind of favor everywhere. I kind of favor Rowe everywhere here. The only reason I'm not going a little heavier on him is doesn't have the best durability. is kind of susceptible to leg kicks, and he's just not that proven overall. He only has about 10 fights, so I'm willing to have a small bet on Rowe here plus money. I think this should be closer to evens, and I'll pass it over to you now, Ozzy.
Yeah, so Rowe, I also like Rowe here. He's coming into this fight after that, fight with Gabe Green, where he showed, kind of what, who Phil Rowe is. He's, a guy who's been training down there in Florida. I think he's been a training partner for a lot of, a lot of more of these higher level guys than he was, and he took a lot of his lumps in the training room, and he was, rewarded eventually with opportunity on the Contender Series. Won that, took like a year in between there, I think, to get to his UFC debut. And, he showed that, he's a competent grappler. He knows his strengths. He knows how to use his attributes, to get to spots where he's comfortable, especially in the grappling. And on the feet, he's a bit fragile. From you saw those leg kicks that really hurt him against Gabe Green. He's susceptible a bit to punches, just with his length, and if you slip in, you're able to potentially catch his chin. But overall, I agree. Looking at Orion, I he was plus like 350 against Dixon in his Contender Series fight. Dixon gassed horribly, in the second and third rounds, and let Orion really take that fight over. But Orion, he's not accurate. He kind of closes his eyes sometimes when he throws shots. He's in that southpaw stance, but he doesn't really, have a volume based approach. It's all power, but he has kind of like, very short arms and short range. And I think here against Rowe, unless he's comes out with a very high IQ, game plan for his, because it's not something like the approach that he would need against Rowe is not something that he's used to doing. I just think it'll be completely foreign to him, and eventually, they're going to just start scrapping. So, I think Rowe eventually, gets on top. He maybe hits one of those like, half guard single leg sweeps, or he's coming up on that leg. He's got to be careful with those shots, those like elbows, Travis Brown, or, just punches when you're shooting in on the legs. But I think Rowe eventually gets the top position, probably puts some damage on Cosce and maybe looks for a submission. And then he just needs to look out for Cosce, just because he is stronger, for sure, has some wrestling, coming up from on bottom and putting Rowe on his back. But I like Phil Rowe here as well. And we've seen the line move to in his favor significantly.
Yeah, it should be a submission or decision win for Rowe at some point. And we're going to move on to the next fight. We're in agreement there. One thing, we also both bet Gabe Green last fight, and we're both betting Phil Rowe now. So our opinion of him has improved, even though he lost that last fight a little bit. Next fight is in the bantamweight division. We got Ronnie Lawrence as the minus 147 favorite, taking on Trevin Jones as the plus 127 underdog. Ozzy, you can start this one out.
Hani the Heat. All right, my guy. I really, really like Ronnie. Spotted him when he was coming in on the Contender Series against Jose Johnson, where he was, plus like 250. Insane price. Had him, huge there. And he's a really talented guy. You look back at his tape, his fight against Armfield in LFA, I believe it was. Awesome fight. Really, really showed how talented Ronnie is, and Armfield is legit. And those two guys actually train together now down in that Stanford MMA, which just has such a crazy roster of guys. So yeah, Ronnie's looked great in his UFC debut against Vince. He showed that takedown heavy approach. But he's going against Trevin Jones, who was underrated, coming into the UFC. Got that win against Timur Valiev, and then people are like, "Oh, it's a fluke. It's a fluke." He's a fluke. And that I was all over Jones against Batista. And he looked amazing in that fight. I thought, really good leg kicks, found his range, and would just look dangerous like the whole fight. And wasn't intimidated at all. And I think he's skilled. I think he's gonna. Trevor Jones is going to win multiple fights in the UFC. I think he's really talented everywhere. But I think in this fight he's going against a pretty high level prospect in Ronnie Lawrence that has a very judge-friendly style. Like he has a style that's friendly to winning fights. I think it's going to be a scrap. I think Ronnie probably looks to throw a lot of kicks while they're on the feet, but he's got to be careful because Jones has a really accurate left hand, and I think he will be trouble for him. He won't be a pushover on the feet. But I think Lawrence probably gets some clinch time here. At some points after some takedowns, some scrambling, and I think he tries to edge out a decision. This fight's fate, it's kind of like 50-50 to go to. I think it's more, this is a fight that'll likely go the distance. I like Lawrence. I don't know if I'm going to bet him here yet. I've been teeter-tottering, but I think this fight goes the distance. So, but I definitely would pick Ronnie here. Definitely favor him.
Yeah, I agree with some of that. Not so much on the goes the distance part. I think this one is pretty live to end by finish, either a Jones finish early or a Lawrence finish late. And I have a pretty common opinion on this one. I think Jones is the better striker. The fight should favor him on the feet, but Ronnie is the better grappler, has solid wrestling, can wrestle for the hard 15 minutes, and that's going to go a long way in the UFC. I agree with what you said about Jones winning fights. I think both these guys are going to be around for the next 3 to 5 years. And Jones has very good power for the bantamweight division. He cannot be ignored on the feet. Lawrence does kind of get reckless coming in at times, doesn't have the best boxing defense. So Jones could easily connect with a punch early on here and put Lawrence out. But I think he's probably going to need that early knockout, or else the pace, the wrestling, the pressure of Lawrence is going to start to add up and the fight will just go too heavily into Lawrence's favor. So I'm slightly favoring Lawrence here. I got 1 unit on him at minus 135. I think he should be minus 150 minimum where the line is at now. But I do respect Jones. I think Jones knockout plus Hani money line should be able to get you some guaranteed profit here. And I saw Jones knockout at plus 350, which I thought was pretty generous. I was expecting it to be closer to plus 200 or something like that. So I think that's a good way to play this fight for guaranteed profit. But I'm going to be picking Ronnie by either decision or a late round 3 finish. And we're going to move on to the next fight in the women's strawweight division. We got Ashley Yoder as the minus 145 favorite, taking on Yoder-Frey as the plus 125 dog. I'll start this one out, and I like Yoder-Frey here. I got another bet already on this fight. Got 3 track bets in the first 3 fights. I kind of just realized that, but I'm betting Frey here. I got her at plus 116, but I'm honestly willing to add a little bit more if it keeps going up. I just don't think that
Please
Yoder.
don't.
No, no, no. We got to disagree on this one, Ozzy. I just don't think Yoder can really justify minus 150 against many women in the UFC. Like Suri Kondo, sure, she can justify it, but against Fry, who is competent everywhere, she's a decent southpaw striker. She's good in the clinch. She can stop takedowns. She's not too good on the mat. I will say that Yoder might be the better overall grappler, but Fry's been training her jiu-jitsu a lot. If you check her Instagram, she's been in the 10th Planet gym in Texas. I don't really rate 10th Planet too highly, but still, it's good to see her working on her weaknesses. And Frey also just moved up to 115 like a year ago. So her body's got to be getting a lot more used to this weight class. I think each and every fight at 115, she's going to look a little bit better. And I think Fry looked pretty competent in her last fight against De Paula. She showed a good ability to like exploit her opponent's weaknesses with the takedowns, just easy body lock takedowns, easy top position. And she really won that fight in a very effective way. And I just think this fight will be 50-50 everywhere. I think the striking and the clinch, the grappling exchanges, they're all going to be close. Ashley Yoder is always in close fights, tons of split decisions. And Yoder always ends up on the ground, and she always ends up in like these weird positions that you never see in any other fights besides Ashley Yoder fights, like weird 50-50. Triangle positions that happened in the Granger fight, the Marcos fight. It happens constantly. So I just think Frey will be competing the entire time. I capped this at 50-50, and I'm going to side with Frey to win a decision here. So I like her as an underdog. Ozzy, I think you're disagreeing on me here, but what's your take on this fight?
I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I just do not feel anybody can either. Like, I mean, Ashley Yoder is like what? What's her record? Like 8-7 or 7-6? I have no idea what it is. But Jeter Frey's record is very similar. Like these girls do barely win fights, and they don't win it very convincingly. Is a problem. Now, what I think the issue is when I'm looking at this fight, and I am not advocating to lay juice on Ashley Yoder. I would never do that. But what I'm saying is, I think people look at the Gu-Frey's last fight versus GDP, who we'll get into later, and they say, "Oh, okay, she took her down, she held her down, she'll do that to Ashley Yoder." I don't think that's likely, because I would say Ashley Yoder is a better grappler than Gloria DePaula, or at
For
least
sure.
she would be more active. You know what I mean? Like, she's not gonna just lay there. Like you said, she always ends up in these obtuse, like, just flipped over, positions all the time. So if that happens, what happened when that, something similar like that happened in her UFC debut against Kay Hansen? She got armbarred, right? When Kay Hansen did that, kind of like hip throw, and then like jumped into like a triangle armbar, whatever it was, and finished her. So I just feel like she has like kind of like bad instincts, and she'll like panic if things start going hairy
I agree.
against her. So,
But
Ashley
she wa
Yoder,
one quick point there.
yeah,
She was, like, plus 170 against, Hansen and, like, was fully covering that price up until
yeah,
that point too.
she does well. I mean, kind of. It was 1-1. It was 1-1. But Yoder is big for the weight class. She has a four and a half inch reach advantage. Um, so I'm not knocking a play on Gu-Frey. I just don't feel like it's something to be excited about. Yoder has never been finished, so I would probably try and just bet Frey by decision, because Frey's not going to finish her. I mean, that would
Yeah,
be
I
it'd be
agree.
crazy if she did. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I could see why you'd be like, hey, this fight should be a pick 'em. But I also, Yoder. Oh, man, just Yoder's so frustrating. I just can't believe she's still in the UFC. But yeah, man, I'm gonna pick Yoder just because she needs to beat somebody, and I just don't think Judy Frey is very aggressive enough, like assertive enough, if the going gets tough. So I'll pick Yoder by decision.
Nice. One more thing
I'm
about Frey
definitely
is
not going to bet this fight.
apparently Frey is not training at Fortis for this camp. And she was for the last camp, so who knows how she'll look. But one fun prop for this, I saw this on DraftKings. Fight ends by split decision is plus 250, and that's not a bad bet in any Ashley Yoder fight. Um, all right, we're gonna move on to the next fight. We have in the featherweight division, we got Kamaka taking on Danny Chavez. Really fun fight. Kamaka slight favorite, minus 116. Chavez minus 104, but this line's been back and bouncing back and forth. It seems like Kamaka is going to close a slight favorite at this rate. And I started the last one, so you can start this one off, Ozzy.
Yeah, so it's a fight here with guys. I think Kamaka lost his last fight to TJ Brown. So both of these guys coming off decision losses where they kind of, I guess, slowed down a little bit down the stretch. Kamaka, coming into that Tony Kelly fight was a bit of a prospect, Hawaiian kid coming out of Extreme Couture. He's got a really good skill set overall. Good strikes. Can mix it up, going to the clinch, or to the ground. In that TJ Brown fight, I think it was mainly he just wasn't doing enough, and it was a really just good performance overall by Brown. I think I scored the fight for Kamaka when I first watched it, but it was super close. I think in this fight against Chavez, Chavez, if he does not get that low kick going, I don't think he has enough prolonged success against a guy in Kai Kamaka who, he has to be really hungry coming into this fight after, that last result. Chavez, I think easy got a game plan for, take away that low kick, pressure him a little bit, let's grapple with this guy a little bit, put him against the fence. Kamaka was training a lot with Sterling, while Sterling's been in Vegas and doing a lot of grappling with him, is so I think he eventually looks to take this fight to the ground, grind Chavez down a bit, and I think it's mainly just avoid that calf kick. He did eat a bunch of them versus Tony Kelly, so that's maybe a little bit of a concern, and he does stand in that like wide, Hawaiian Samoan, freaking power stance like they're doing a haka or some shit. So, he might get his leg kicked a bit. But if not, I don't think Chavez is that good. Like I think that TJ Brown, if he fought him again, like TJ Brown would beat him. He got that variance leg kick game going and it worked. So, he won that fight. But I like Kamaka here.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much all that. Chavez is probably the faster guy of the two. I just don't think he has enough ways to set up his striking. Like you said, very reliant on that leg kick, very reliant on his right hand, but he kind of throws single strikes at a time while Kamaka might not have the highest output or he doesn't really pressure his opponents that much, but pretty much every time throws a strike, it's in combination and he fires like 3 or 4 strikes off with it. And I just think he's a bit more layered as a striker than Chavez is. But I do see the leg kick being a possible problem for either guy, honestly, because Chavez got his leg kicked a lot by Gordon, got really easily pressured, pushed back to the cage, was pushed against the cage and taken down a few times as well. And Gordon really just comprehensively beat Chavez pretty much everywhere in that fight. Cardio, wrestling, striking.
The story is on.
Yeah, we cashed on him as an underdog there. Pretty lucky that fight even went through with that 4 pound weight miss by Gordon, but that went to our benefit there. And Kamaka, I agree with what you said about him being a little more urgent here. Let that TJ Brown fight slip away. I do disagree with the decision. I kind of thought it was closer to 3 rounds to 0 for Kamaka than it was 2-1 for Brown. And I just think he'll come out a little more aggressive, throw more strikes in the feet, and I think he could possibly even look to mix up with a takedown. If you watch the Stack fight in LFA, which is honestly probably the best LFA fight I've ever seen, Kamaka versus Stack. Kamaka was having trouble a little bit in round 2 there, but in round 3 leaned on his wrestling, got that late takedown, kept top position for the whole round, and was able to win the fight that way. So in a fight where it could be 1-1 heading into round 3, Chavez typically slows down in round 3. Kamaka has that wrestling to lean on. I think that wrestling and that takedown could be big for Kamaka here. So I like Kamaka here as well. I haven't bet on him yet. I don't know if you said it, if you have, but around evens, I think it is somewhat appealing. I'm a big fan of Kamaka. I bet on him in most of his fights so far. So I think he should be like 55% here, minus 130. So
Yeah.
we'll see where this line ends up.
Yeah, I think main thing too is to consider is that like Kamaka had that fight against Tony Kelly and that fight against TJ
Stack in
Brown.
the same month. Oh,
Yeah, and TJ Brown, where he slowed down a little bit in the third round for sure. But those are freaking crazy. And the Stack fight, those are crazy fight. Like they're high paced fights. Like they were going at it. The fight between Chavez and Gordon, it wasn't that high pace. You know what I
no,
mean? Like it
not at
was,
all.
and he slowed down significantly there. So I give Kamaka the cardio advantage there, and so I think Kamaka should be favored more here. So yeah, let's get that win, Kamaka.
Yep, and we're going on to a fight in the lightweight division next. A very popular favorite this week, to our surprise, Garcia minus 305 taking on Chris Gruetzmacher plus 255. I'll start this one off. I was initially interested in Gruetzmacher here, and I still think it is dog or pass, but rewatching that fight of Hernandez versus Gruetzmacher did look pretty old, slow, physically shot, perhaps. I mean, it was against a much better fighter than Garcia, a much more athletic and fast fighter in Hernandez. But I mean, he made Hernandez look really good there, and that's not something many fighters can do. So I do think you have to question if Gruetzmacher is shot. He did look decent against Joe Lozon back in 2018, but that was over 2 years ago. Actually, no, 3 years ago now. So it's kinda hard to rely on that Gruetzmacher of 3 years ago to come back. If the Gruetzmacher from that Lozon fight shows up here, I think he'll be standing toe to toe with Garcia. It'll be minus 150 Garcia at best, but with the Gruetzmacher we saw in that last fight, it's hard to put much faith into Garcia, but I don't think Garcia is very good at anything. I mean, most of his wins are submissions over low-level, Hispanic fighters, not really the highest jiu-jitsu pedigrees going on
Hey,
down
hey,
there.
relax, watch it.
Yeah, yeah, my fault, my fault. But you learn your jujitsu in New York. It doesn't count.
Yeah, I
Um,
gotta. They need an infusion of Americans down there.
yeah, the Brazilians need to move a little bit north. Um, but Garcia just really isn't that good at anything. I mean, he's durable. I'll give him that. He definitely seems tough. He went into that Nasrat fight, kind of took the fight to Nasrat, came out aggressive, took some big punches from Nasrat, and kept fighting. Kind of conceded defeat after halfway through that fight. Didn't really look to have too much interest in the second half of the fight. Garcia can wrestle a bit. His boxing's okay. I just don't think he's really great at any area of MMA. So I don't see where he's going to blow Gruetzmacher out of the water. Um, I guess I'm gonna be picking Garcia still. I think I'll pick him by knockout just in case Gruetzmacher is completely shot, like I said, but I have a hard time seeing Garcia cover -300 here besides that quick round 1 finish. So, what are you thinking here? You think, there's any value on Gruetzmacher, Ozzy?
So this is a tough fight because Gruetzmacher, when he was on tough, when he went on tough, he was undefeated, or he was 11-1 or something like that. And I was like, man, okay, this guy's kind of tough. He won 2 fights on tough. Got knocked out by the goat. So everybody gets knocked out by the goat. So no shame
No issue
there.
there. Yep.
Oh, no issue there. Exhibition fight as well. So, moves on and he gets a few fights, but he's fought, tough dudes in the UFC. Like, other than that debut fight, and he looked okay in them, I guess. Like, I've always, Gruetzmacher is just a guy, you saw him in that Lozon fight. He's just a nasty dude. He's just like, fuck it, I'm walking forward. I'm not, you could hit me, it doesn't matter. He's like kind of, like he reminds me a little bit of like Court McGee a bit, but I guess like maybe like a more probably a bad comparison because Court McGee doesn't need
Yeah,
as many
I
punches
see
and
it.
stuff. But like kind of that like kind of style of guy, just lunch pail dude. He's the only way he beats you if with pace and cardio and have some wrestling at the end of the day. Rafa Garcia, I thought he was kind of cool dude when he was coming into UFC. Like I don't know in what condition, like how I saw his fights against Humberto Bandenet and Eric Gonzalez, but saw it like, all right, well, this is a Mexican dude, young, amazing cardio, doesn't stop, pretty good wrestler. But I thought he was going to be fighting in the UFC at 145. He's at 155. I think you saw that in that Nasrat fight. He didn't really have the power to bother Nasrat at all. And I don't think he's really going to bother Gruetzmacher with many strikes. Like, Alex Hernandez hit this dude with the kitchen sink, and that's why he went unconscious. I don't think that Garcia has that kind of zip that Hernandez has in the first round. So if Gruetzmacher, takes some kind of approach, I think maybe he can make this a fight where he's competitive in the rounds. Garcia, I know, is training in Colorado with Whitman, so his cardio is always going to be good, but maybe it gets a little bit even better with training at elevation there. But I think Gruetzmacher could be competitive here. There's no way I would want to lay -200. Why would you want to lay minus
300.
200? 300, my bad, on a guy who has not won a UFC fight. Like, how are you like? Why would you do that? So it just doesn't make any sense. And these are the kind of fights like UFC veteran like this, a guy like Gruetzmacher, who like you said, his grappling might be just a little bit, a step ahead. Like this guy, rolled with Davi Ramos, rolled around with Joe Lozon, was on the Ultimate Fighter like 6-7 years ago. So he's definitely comes from a grappling based background. So I'll keep my eye on this fight. Maybe the decision props too. I think both these guys are tough. I don't really see a finish. Do you see a finish here? Like
No,
where?
but I also bet goes the distance in Gruetzmacher Hernandez, which, went down in
Yeah.
flames. Um,
But
but
yeah, maybe look at Gruetzmacher decision. It's plus 500. So
yeah, and if Garcia is gonna win cleanly, it's gonna be like a quick knockout. But I mean, when the guy wrestles, he can't really
I'd be
keep top
surprised at a
position.
knockout, man. Yeah, I just don't see that.
Yeah,
This
I
guy's
agree.
going a decision with Humberto Bandenay.
Yeah, but I think he wrestled throughout most of that fight. And but I just don't see good top position from Garcia either. He can like hit like a high amplitude takedown, but he doesn't keep top position. I've seen him get reversed. Eric Gonzalez is probably the best opponent he's beaten, and Gonzalez beat him up pretty bad in round 1 before like kind of gassing pretty hard in the second round. So Yeah, no way you could be laying 300 on Garcia. I guess just stab on Gruetzmacher and don't overthink it. And we're gonna move on to the next
I'm going
fight.
with the I'm going with the over, man. That was the play I wasn't even thinking about until now, but I think this fight goes, isn't it
It's a
go to
pretty. I think it's
decision.
a pretty popular pick. That it's the under. You check out Bet MMA. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of
Under
that.
the under is
I,
pop, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, holy crap! No, you're right because the over was mine open minus 175, and now it's minus 130. But do you see what I mean? Like what?
I do. I do.
Like Gritzmacher, he'll eat the punches, So
Unless
I
he
don't know.
truly is shot. Unless he is
Yeah,
shot.
his shit. I think he could be, but this Rafa Garcia is a small guy for 155.
Yeah.
It's not easy to knock the like that. You saw how many punches it took Hernandez
Yeah.
knock him out. It takes
I was
some
rewatching
shots.
that today. I don't know why, but I just found that knockout like hilarious. The way that Gruetzmacher just stiffened up from that. I don't know
Yeah, it was
why,
a
but
bad knock. I mean, honestly, it was a bad knockout, but it was that was 9 months ago. So his brain is he's
yeah,
good.
he might have
He's
waken
good.
up a little bit.
9 months to the day. He's good. That's all you need.
Facts. We're gonna move on to the next fight, featherweight division. We got two guys making their UFC debut: Baghdasaryan minus 135, Colin Anglin plus 115. You're gonna start this one off, Ozzy. What are you thinking about this glorified contender series fight?
I love it. It's like a contender series bracket, man. It was like that's what they should do. Why don't they do that? They're like, hey, look, we're gonna put you guys in a bracket. There's gonna be like a pseudo bracket. I think it'd be more interesting.
Yeah, true.
Dana, do that. Sean Shelby, get on it.
We want our
Anyway,
cut. We want.
you know what I mean? It's all about hype nowadays. All this stuff is about hype. So
Yeah,
make
like
this guy
PFL. You don't. They're not the highest level fighters, but when you put them in a bracket, it gets instantly more entertaining.
contender fucking champion. Let's go. Intercontinental champion. Come on, Dana. Let's go. Take a page out of Vince's book.
He
There's
listens.
different.
He listens every week
Of
too.
course. Of course. Why wouldn't he? Especially now that I'm on the feed.
Yeah.
But no, so we got this fight here. Two guys on the contender series. Anglin was a pretty big underdog. Got his ass whooped for a bit, but this dude's just tough. Like, I think wrestling background. Kind of just like a wrestle grappler, but he's not like particularly good on top. Like he looks like the kind of wrestler who his first few years, he wasn't, that good, but then, he kind of grew into it a little bit. But Melsick though, I think this dude is kind of serious. I think he's got some potential. He's jacked. I mean, this guy's massive, and has amazing power coming from that left hand side. He's training with the Glenn, from with Edmund, and all those Glendale guys. So he's Armenian, and he's tightening up his Brazilian jiu-jitsu with Edwin Najmi. He's training there, I think, a few times a week. And I think that contender series fight, I think people knock his cardio a little bit, but I think he showed himself pretty well. That was a fight against Dennis, who is definitely legit. I've seen Dennis fight in person in Ring of Combat, and he's definitely a really really tough guy, and very well rounded. And it was a fight where Melsick came out, was landing, most of his shots right to the body, to the head, both with his hands or his kicks. And then when they did get to the grappling situations, he stayed pretty safe. He even had some offense. So I think if he doesn't gas, I think Anglin's kind of drawing a little bit dead here. I didn't really think his takedowns were, particularly good, or really set up. It was kind of like he was, hanging on the guy and, I can't even pronounce his name. He kind of
I'm off or something. Yeah.
Naimov, ended up just tiring out, and Anglin was able to get a few takedowns, but he was never able to find a finish, and it was not that high pace of a fight. And I saw Naimov then after in a Titan FC fight against for the title there, and he gassed in that fight too. So the guy's just a gasser. And Anglin was able to beat him, but I think here, Melsick, I think, is able to put some damage on him early on, and hopefully get him out of there. And I think at minus 130, if it's minus 130, I think there's some minus 135. I think
Yeah.
that he's
35.
I think that he might have some value. I know, people knock his strength of schedule for sure. He hasn't fought anybody, all right? Like, definitely. No, he's fought nobody. But Dennis is legit. And I think this guy trains with good enough people. And he's been out for like a year, too. So he's been getting better. Anglin has as well. It's a close fight. But, I side with Melsick.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything there. And Melsick really surprised me on the contender series. Like when you see a guy coming into a fight with like 4 quick round one knockouts, he had never been tested really, never fought more than 30 seconds. You kind of think he's going to start round one well. And if he doesn't win in round one, he's going to lose. But I thought Melsick's cardio was actually pretty good for not having ever been out of round one, for not having ever been past 30 seconds. I think he did like slow down a little bit, but he fought well even when he was tired. He still has really fast strikes. I think he's going to be way faster than Anglin on the feet here. I mean, if you look at the way Anglin was striking with some like really low level fighters on the regionals just a couple fights ago, I mean, he was like going toe to toe with like 1 and 2 fighters having competitive fights, eventually like breaking them down after 6 or 7 minutes and winning. But I mean, Melsick would have got those guys out of there in 30 seconds. I just think we're dealing with different levels on the feet here. Melsick obviously has that kickboxing background. And I agree with what you said about his takedown defense. Bazookia got a few trip takedowns, but Melsick got back up, hit his own offensive takedown at one point. And for having never fought past 30 seconds, I think Melsick did like as good as humanly possible for that fight. I think he looked really good everywhere. So I think he's gonna outstrike Anglin here. I think, like you said, the only way I see Melsick losing is gassing out. But I think he should be a bigger favorite than he is now. I think he should be over minus 150. So might have to lock in some action on him. Minus 135. I think that's a good price, especially considering that he's probably going to be winning the fight early on. If Anglin wins, it's probably going to be the second half of the fight. So you might as well just live bet Anglin if he's dealing with the striking well. So I like Melsick here. Probably will end up with a 1 unit bet on him. It doesn't feel great betting a contender series guy as a favorite, but I think Melsick proved enough in that last fight that I'm comfortable backing him in this type of matchup against Anglin. So we're in agreement here.
Yeah, people have been smashing that Melsick KO prop too. So,
I think
they've been
decision
smashing
is
that thing.
somewhat possible enough that you might as well just take him his money line.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I'm a money line guy, but I think that prop opened like plus what 325 on Bet Online is down to plus 210 now. So
Really, yeah.
a lot of
I
action.
understand why. We're gonna move on to the last fight on the prelims in the bantamweight division. We got former UFC champion, put some respect on her name, Nico Montano, minus 275 against Wu Yanan, one of China's best female fighters in
Yeah,
history. In history.
yeah,
So I think you started the last one. I guess I got to go first on this one. Um,
yeah. That's right. Go
I
ahead.
think I think Montano should be good to go here. I mean, even with the 2 year layoff, even though she's never won a fight at bantamweight, or maybe she has before the UFC, but I don't think she's won a UFC fight at bantamweight. I think even like 70% of Montano should be good enough to beat Wu. Wu is an awkward striker, a bad defensive grappler. I mean, look at the way she lost to Edwards. Honestly, she made Edwards look really good out there. So I just don't think Wu is good at any aspect of MMA. Maybe she arm bars Montano from bottom or something, but Montano should be able to hit easy takedowns. Honestly, the striking though could be close. Like if Montano decides not to wrestle for some unforsaken reason, like I think it could be close, maybe even favoring Wu. Like Mizuki Inoue like cleanly beat Wu one time, but that was in China, and then the judges still gave one scorecard to Wu. So maybe she woos the judges into thinking that she won.
Ooh,
But,
wow, wow.
Montano should cover minus 200. If you got in on her, like, minus 200,
The fuck.
obviously, it's minus 275. What the hell is so funny over there? It's
I
your
mean,
turn.
I just think this fight is freaking hilarious. Like, Wu is Wu is 25, right?
No
She's
way.
had so they say. Hey, I'm just going
Yeah, the
off the
Chinese have
information.
never lied about their athletes'
I'm just
ages.
going off the information I'm given. Okay,
True.
so she's 3-1 in the UFC. Okay,
No, she's
she
not.
oh, 1-3. Excuse me, 1-3.
There you go.
Yeah, 1-3. So, the fight against Jocelyn Edwards is just hilarious. And I mean, this should be a gimme for Nico Montano. Like, Nico actually has grappling ability in the women's division. Like, is very good. It was very disappointing to see how bad she gassed against Juliana Pena. Like, you would think that, hey, moving up to 135, you won't gas, you'll be good. You'll cash as that plus 200 dog. But no, she was winning early. She was winning early, and then Juliana Pena was like, hey, watch this. And she just glue into her with underhooks. She's like, you can't get away from these underhooks. So now Wu, the thing is, Wu is not going to be able to defend the takedowns of Nico Montano. Like,
Nope.
it's just not possible. So, given that it's not possible, you saw, like, look, the Inoue fight was the Inoue fight to the Edwards fight. It was 2 years, okay, or a year and a half, okay, year and a half. She didn't get any better, like, at all. Like, she didn't look any better in that fight to me at all.
Not remotely. No.
Not even a little bit. So, Nico Montano should be able to win this fight. If it has any pride, she'll go for the finish. So, but the over is really juiced. I would definitely not parlay this over. Martian, I need to, because I'm on, I just need to, like, you have to mention things like that, because you don't know, some of these people, they really do parlay these things like that. So I definitely
True.
wouldn't parlay over here,
We don't really
because
condone any parlays, flat out.
no, wasn't Jocelyn Edwards in mount on Wu? Did she have
Yeah.
mount, or was she mounted? I don't
No,
remember.
I think I do remember Edwards being on bottom for like the first 4 minutes, but then she reversed with 30 seconds left and landed like one strike, and like the 2 out of 3 judges gave her the round.
There was some crazy grappling going on there. But what I'm saying is, Nico could, like, land in mount and, like, just smash her. So, don't do that. But yeah,
Let's see what her sub line is. 600 plus 600.
Pretty good.
That's
Pretty good.
worth it. I mean, she was taking down Pena, like you said. She looked good in round 1. She even got a late takedown in round 3.
Yeah.
But
I need action. I might need action on this fight, or this could be the bathroom break fight. But if I did, I mean, that's not a bad sub line.
plus 600. Yeah, that's good. That's good. We got fooled and tricked by that sub line last week with Sajara, sadly. But
yeah, all right.
I mean, you might better be off just taking inside the distance. I wonder what that is. FanDuel
Plus
slacking
420.
on plus 350. I see on where's that at 420 on Bet Online?
That's on 5. That was just like best line of it. Yeah, plus 325 on that. But I had to take the sub prop, like these. I mean, we're seeing more of these, like, Mercy TKOs, I guess, here and there. Although we did not see that in that. I mean, maybe would you consider that Elise Reed TKO or Mercy TKO because her eye was so fucked?
I don't know. I think Sajara actually was trying to put a hurting on her. I mean,
Sajara's mean, looking mean, man. That's why, man, I saw that corner for Elise Reed. I was like, ooh, I don't think this is gonna end well.
yeah. I wish she would have finished her. It would have been a lot more profitable if she finished her. But all right, enough of this low level MMA talk. We're moving on to the main card. This isn't really getting much better in terms of quality, but we got Brian Barberena minus 275, Jason Witt plus 235.
Ooh, okay.
You want to start this one off?
Yeah, for sure. So, welterweight fight here. Witt got a bomb dropped on his chin in this fight last time. But, he's a guy, he's the vanilla gorilla. I heard he's got some beef with Chase Sherman. I don't know how they're gonna settle that. But yeah, he wants that nickname to himself. And he's a truck on top, man. He takes you down, and this dude will hold, he'll hold you down. For the guys that train, there's always like this one guy who he's not really good at jiu-jitsu, but he's just really good at staying on top. And that's Jason Witt. He'll hug your leg, he'll throw little shots, these guys training at these MMA gyms, they got these things. They're like, oh, this is my series that I hit, like, on the cage and stuff. Like, where, like, okay, like a drill almost. Like, okay, I do this and he does this and I do this and that's the Jason Witt. They've got these things. drilled into his head. But unfortunately, when the guy gets drilled in the head, literally, he goes down all the time. His chin is not the best, and Brian Barberena is impossible to put away. He's coming, but he's crazy chalk here. I mean, you look at this fight, and Barberena's talking about he had his, like an 8-inch, 10-inch incision. He had like emergency abdominal surgery. This guy, he might be fragile now.
When was that? Recently?
Yeah, I mean, kind of recently. I don't know how long, but I saw some pictures of Barberena, and he was looking a little rough. He wasn't looking in shape.
Yeah, he's certainly not in his physical prime.
So like I couldn't lay the chalk, but this guy's active. Barberena, whether no matter his what his physical appearance is, he comes in shape. Usually he has really good cardio and he never stops. So I think Witt here could probably is and will probably land some takedowns. Here, like, I think they'll grapple a bit. I don't think it's gonna be a quick fight. But I think as the fight goes on, Barberena probably starts getting up. He starts getting some underhooks. He starts putting some punches on Witt, and then Witt's chin maybe folds. But money line here, I mean, at plus 235 for Witt, I think that's pretty good overall, because if he's able to take some of these shots, I think that Barberena is not really going to shut down his game plan. The thing, Barberena is going to have to respond to his game plan, if that makes sense. So if this fight is extended, Witt's going to take him down, and he's going to get to some top positions. I just think that Barberena is not really a negator. He's a guy that comes back on you. He's a guy that he'll take all the offense that you could dish out, and then he'll still be there, and you're like, shit, like, I'm tired. So I think that's kind of Barberena's path, really. So I think Witt could be a look here, and but it's not a fight I'm really interested in. It's just such a strange matchup with all the variables for Barberena.
Yeah, I agree with a good amount of that. Barb, if you look at his past 3 wins, I mean, just doing this now, like, they're not really that far ahead of Jason Witt, Joe Proctor, Jake Ellenberger, and Anthony Ivy. I also don't remember Anthony Ivy taking him down 5 times. I didn't. I skipped rewatching that one this week, but yeah, like you said, Brian is insanely durable. He's got not the greatest takedown defense, but he's good at getting back up to his feet and staying safe. So I see it being difficult for Witt to finish him. But Witt by decision at plus 550, that's pretty good value. Um, yeah, I guess it is better, or it's more likely that Witt looks like a live dog than it is that Barberena covers minus 275. I mean, Barb covering minus 275 is probably just going to be touching the chin of Witt in round one and some miracle knockout. But Barberena is just not much of a finisher. I mean, he does have some knockouts on his record, but he just doesn't really hit that hard. He intentionally doesn't put much power behind his strikes. But I do think he is the much better fighter than Witt. So I think I'm going to be picking him here, but obviously not going to be laying that minus 275 chalk. I'll still be picking Barb by decision. And we're going to move on to the next fight. It's in the, what is this, flyweight division with Benoit versus Adashev. Yes,
See,
it is. It is. We got Benoit minus 135, Adashev plus 115. This fight was rebooked from maybe a few months ago. I might have analyzed it on my
yeah,
podcast before. But
yeah.
you want to start this one off?
Yeah, so Benoit, missed weight last, or didn't, couldn't make weight,
That's right. That's right.
unknown what he was gonna do, there. So I think I like Benoit, in that first fight. I was like, Adashev, I know a little bit about some of his past opponents. Have trained with a few of them, have just known a few of them just from being a little bit local here. And I think Adashev came into the UFC. I think now his situation is a lot better. He's training at Nick Catone's. He's training with a lot of the high level guys there, Frankie Edgar, and the gang of those guys there. And he has some talent. He's a glory kickboxer. But I think in his fights, able to go everywhere, right? Because he has been training jujitsu and wrestling and all these things for a while. But Benoit here, he has so much more experience than Adashev, that I think, unless Adashev is like really making some of these improvements, I feel that Benoit has the sharper striking here, and should have some kind of submission edge. Especially, Adashev is good at getting to back to top position, scrambling a little bit. But I think that, the grappling could be to Benoit's advantage. But, Benoit slows down a bit. Adashev, I think, if I remember right, um, his third round against Sumidarji was his best round. He was coming on strong there. Or in the second round, I think he was
I think
doing
it
a
was
little
the
bit well.
second. I think it was
Yeah,
the
but I
second.
think yeah, but I thought that he also though he performed okay in the third round. He definitely lost it, but he performed okay in that third round. So, I think Benoit here should have some advantage. I'm interested in to see how he tries to approach the fight. Does he look to grapple a lot? Or does he, is he content with a kickboxing match and looking to find Adashev's shin? And that's another thing. I think he does have a durability advantage. Benoit has taken a lot of shots in the UFC. You've seen him, take a lot of punches. You have not seen that as much with Adashev. He fought Simidarji, who, I guess like, maybe he has power. I'm not sure. Who knows? Because he hasn't really fought that many people. But Benoit's been the distance, multiple times. I don't think he's been knocked out ever, right? I don't think he's has any losses by knockout. So I think he does have the durability edge, and I'd pick him here as that slight favorite.
You interested in betting him at all?
Think that line needs to shorten a bit more. When I bet him last time, I'm checking, I got minus 117. That probably though was influenced a little bit by like, people knowing a little bit that his weight cut was kind of shitty. So that's something worth considering. But I don't think I think I would need yeah, I need this line to shorten a little bit to feel very comfortable with it. And I'm not really comfortable on the prop side of things, I'd say. So, but to be determined, though, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm considering it as well because I agree. Benoit huge experience advantage, just share the cage with so many better fighters, and honestly, I think there's a good case he won his past two fights. I think I remember slightly edging the Alatang fight
That's a
for
good
for
point. Yeah.
Alatang, but I mean he was going toe to toe with Tim Elliott. His takedown defense has gotten so much better. I mean his early UFC fights, he was a really bad wrestler, and he's been stuffing a lot more takedowns. His jiu-jitsu's been getting better. He was training a lot with Henzo in New York before the pandemic, and I just think he's more steadily improving. You're right that Adashev could be leveling up here. He did just become like a lot more serious of a fighter in the past year, so he might make like a big leap. But from what we've seen on tape, him beating up a couple low level guys in Bellator, him having a one good round against Sumidarji, I'm not quite willing to trust him against a tested, well rounded guy like Benoit. And Benoit's a southpaw, right? Adashev, I think, is orthodox. I think that could play into Benoit's factor
Yeah,
here
Adashev. I think Adashev is southpaw.
as well. Really, um,
Yeah.
I have in my notes that he fights from both stances. High level note taking in effect here.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think he does. He'll fight from both, but I think primarily southpaw. I think when Nam bombed him, it was definitely from southpaw.
Yeah. I don't put too much stock into that result because he came in short notice. He came in like visibly chubby and just got
Dude,
rocked in
Nam
that one.
was minus 125 on that fight.
True,
That
but
was
but
nuts.
I know I bet Nam there. I bet Nam by knockout there. But honestly, like if they run that fight back now, like I'm not
No,
saying
no,
go
no,
and
no,
bet
no, no,
Nam
no, no,
again.
no,
Like
no, no, no. Yes, yeah, yes, Nam again.
Nam looks so bad his past few fights. I don't know
No, no,
about
no,
that.
no, no. Nam again. Nam
Well, I
again.
feel like Benoit was supposed to fight Nam at some point, but that never came to
I
fruition.
give you four letters if they run that back. PTSD. That's
True,
it.
true. Yeah, he did get bodied pretty hard there. But yeah, I'm siding with Benoit in this one. I think he should have a wrestling grappling advantage. Honestly, might even be the better striker, even though Adashev comes from that kickboxing background. So experience is a big factor for Benoit here. So we'll keep you posted on it if we decide to bet him. Um, Next fight in the welterweight division, short notice replacement. Here we got Stolze -190, Jared Gooden coming in as the late replacement +165. I'll start this one out. Stolze honestly looked pretty good against Ameev, making his UFC debut against like an extremely tough, like what is Ameev, 20-1 or something like that, 5 wins in the UFC. And Stolze honestly didn't get like blown out of the water in any area. He got taken down a few times, but he did really good getting back up to his feet. I think he's going to be a pretty difficult guy to hold down. And I think he was outstruck over the course of that fight, especially in round two. But he had like a good moment in round one with that big knee. And if you watch his octagon fights from before the UFC, the guy is a decent striker. So I agree with him being the favorite here, but I'm definitely not in a rush to play him at 65%, even against a terrible fighter like Gooden. Gooden really is kind of knockout or bust in all of his fights. I don't think he's a great striker. I think he's a terrible defensive grappler, can easily be taken down, he lays on his back for long periods of time. So if Stolze wanted to offensive grapple here, I think he probably would have success hitting takedowns and out grappling Gooden. So he might do that just to take the easiest path to victory. But Gooden was getting like blown out of the water by Abu Bakar Nurmagomedov in his last fight on the feet. So I think Stolze should be pretty safe here everywhere, but in no rush to lay the -190 chalk on him. But if you like Gooden, just take him the knockout prop. Honestly, he slows down in his fights when he has a full camp, and this one's on like a week's notice, so he's definitely going to slow down. So, Gooden knockout is probably the way to play him. But even that, I don't think there's much value, and I think Stolze's going to win. What about you, Ozzy?
So I bet Stolze last year against Ameev, and I thought, oh, he was landing some good kicks. The guy has some good kicks. I think he's solid everywhere overall, but he's just not a fighter you want to back as a favorite. Like, he's got like a loss to Terry Brazier in his on his record, who's like a 155er, 145er. I don't know. I feel like Gooden, I don't know anything about Gooden other than he's best Daniel Levy's boy. That's like the only thing I really know about him.
True.
He's only got a few losses on his, in his career, and all to pretty legit guys. Like lost to Julian Williams, who's the guy who runs Adolfo Vieira's camp, Fusion, I think is the name. Graves, Bruno Oliveira, Oban, Nurmagomedov. So at plus 170 here, I kind of, I mean, if he's not in shape for this fight, like it's a very bad decision to take it because he's definitely going to get cut. But this is kind of a forgiving matchup, and at plus 165, I think Gooden, he's not going to get taken down by Stolze. Not that I think he's that's the route he's going to want to go, but I don't think he's going to get taken down. So I think his kick defense needs to be on point, and then he needs to just look to throw shots. So in that fight against Nurmagomedov, obviously he was getting taken down, or I mean he was getting beat up on the feet too, but obviously he had to think about the takedown. And Joe Ban, tricky southpaw. I mean, he kind of went to war with Joe Ban. That was a pretty good performance, I thought, by him.
Yeah, not bad.
Coming in, he was, just a slight underdog. He fought pretty well there. So, I was about to pounce on that plus 170. It kind of moved a little bit. So I'm thinking about, hey, do I want to bet him now? But I think here, this line should probably be closer. Like, I mean, it opened plus 110 on Stolze's side. And I think people just want to fade Gooden. So
He opened
I
the
think
dog.
I mean Bet Online
Yeah, apparently
open Stolze the favorite. I mean in the favorite.
that's
Minus
suspicious.
130.
I think Dan
And
Levy set that line.
maybe Dan Levy set that line, but I mean, why would you want to late chalk on Stolze? Like this guy's
Yeah,
not urgent. He was getting taken down by Ameev. Like what if
no
Gooden?
shame in
What if
that.
Gooden? What
I'm,
if Gooden? What if Gooden? I mean, Gooden's jack, dude. I mean, you saw him at that at the media day. He was like, "Shirt, fuck that."
but
He's jack, dude.
imagine what
Him
Ameev
on
would do to Gooden. He would like 30-24 him.
But Amiv, who cares? Amiv just wins by decision. Like, Stolze was just another incarnation of a fight of Amiv's. Like, what if Gooden grabs him and puts him on his back? Is it easy for Stolze to get back up? I don't think
You
so.
think Gooden's gonna have more success out grappling Stolze than Amiv did? No way.
I'm just
It's
saying he could. He could
inconceivable.
land. I mean, if they're against the fence, like, you don't think that Gooden could land a takedown on this
He's
guy?
not gonna keep him there for more than 15 seconds because Amiv could barely do it.
I
Um,
just
I thought
mean,
Stolze's get-ups looked, like, really good there. Like, he was, like, getting to the fence, he was, like, circling off the fence pretty quickly. And for a UFC debut, it was pretty decent.
yeah, you're
Also,
right. I'm not betting Gooden. You're right. I'm not.
Stolze also did take down, this guy Janka,
So,
and, it was in his, one of his most recent fights before the UFC.
what you watch tape other than UFC?
Yeah, bro, for sure. I mentioned it. I said in his octagon fights,
This guy's 8-6 is Jan Janka.
8 whatever, it was 8 who cares?
He's
I'm saying
skinny. You see how skinny this guy is in his
but he's
topology
still
picture?
but Stolze went for an offensive takedown there, so I'm saying it's possible.
See this guy's topology picture?
Moving on to the next
Look
fight.
how skinny this guy is.
Alright, this is one of your main events. You're gonna
Which
start
fight
this
are we
one
on?
off.
Which
We're
one?
on,
Oh,
GDP,
oh, oh.
baby.
GDP.
Buys minus 170, DePaula minus or plus 145 is the dog. The battle of the contender series frauds
GDP.
is what I'm calling it.
GDP.
Actually,
I don't know if you saw. I don't know if you saw Yahoo Finance. I don't know if you get the notifications. GDP is up this year. GDP is up. We grew 6%, and Gloria DePaula probably owes me not quite 6% of my bankroll, but she owes me a chunk of the bankroll because she let me down in that last fight against Yoder-Frey. How did she not beat Yoder-Frey? How does she not beat Yoder-Frey?
can't stop a
How?
takedown.
How? I can't believe it. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so you see GDP's last or fights before her last fight looked pretty good. You know, she lost to a Brazilian zombie. I think Ariane, right? Right? I think that's who.
Powder.
I forgot who she fought, but she fought this Brazilian chick who's a freaking zombie. And she stayed in there. She looked pretty tough. And I hate this fight for her against Cheyenne-Buys, because Cheyenne-Buys, I saw her on Contender, I'm like, whoa, this girl's serious. And she was so serious that the only thing that could beat her is
Heading
the
on
most
first.
unescapable position in all of women's MMA, and it's a head and arm throw.
Have you learned how to escape that as a brown
Dude,
belt in jiu-jitsu? Do you know how to escape that?
dude, I mean, listen, I don't know. You never know, dude, because you don't know until you're there again. You
I
know
mean,
what I mean? But I'll
like
tell you right
in
now,
my jiu-jitsu 101 classes, we drilled that position a lot.
you
Jiu-jitsu
do,
101,
yeah.
where like the casuals with like the gi they give out to like when you
Dude,
sign up,
it's
they know how to.
valuable. That's a common position to get into. I'll tell you, my first tournament I ever did, I got thrown by some kid, and then he got me with the leg Americana thing that you do from that position. Then I don't even know what they try and call, from scarf hold. You put you put that wrist in there and you yeah,
Oh, right.
I was like, holy shit, this guy. And that's kind of the level, I guess, some of the women's MMA grappling is. It's like if it was 2008. Because they love going for this.
Maybe 1998, honestly.
No, dude, respect. Back in the 2000s, people were still hitting at an alarming rate. Um, so back to this fight though, okay? Cheyenne-Buys, legit. Like the girl's legit. She's a legit fighter. She's got really good hands. She throws in combination. She's tough. She's gritty. She'll follow you fucking home. She's about that life. So she's coming into this fight against Gloria DePaula, and I mean, I think this is a well-matched fight. Like, to be honest, like, I think both these girls, are tough. I don't know if Cheyenne Buys is going to look to grapple? I'm going to assume no. Against Hillary Rose, she was just throwing shots, like she'd flurry in on shots, and then she like get the clinch, and then she flurry in on shots. Now, note that Hillary Rose. Let's take a note of this, right? Chavez-Kamaka is the favorite. She beat Hillary Rose to get into UFC. Elise Reed just got destroyed by Eubanks. She beat Elise Reed to get into UFC. So maybe my girl GDP, maybe
Has a chance.
maybe she's got a chance. But outside looking in, it's a tough matchup for her because she's just like, I don't know. I don't know if it's that she didn't have that pop, but there was something wrong with her. There was something wrong with her.
What do you against Fry?
Okay, there was something wrong with her, man.
She never saw a body lock takedown in her life. That's what it was.
And someone slipped something into her drink. Something happened, man. Something happened. Because that was not GDP.
Both of them look like great on the Contender Series, and then just completely collapsed at the first sign of any grappling adversity.
I believe in GDP. I believe in GDP.
At plus 150, I think she is the right one to believe in.
I believe in GDP. Now, this line was kind of volatile this week. I heard some boys, some maybe touts out there with some, Twitter followers might have tipped GDP at a certain price, right? Brought it down a little bit, right? And then Chavez-Kamaka got to like minus 150 or something like that, or 155, and then went right back up. So I'm not laying. I don't lay chalk on women's fights. People laugh at me. They'll say Eubanks, easy cash. Who was the other favorite that won?
You don't typically lay chalk on because I believe you did bet the Paula as a favorite.
Yes, it was a bad idea. And what happened?
Yes, but yeah,
what happened?
You've learned your lesson.
What happened exactly? So, who was the other woman's favorite recently that won? That it was like, it was chalk, it was easy, whatever. I don't do it, so I'm not doing it now. So it's GDP or pass, but it's probably gonna be pass. But
yeah, I won't spend too much time. I agree, GDP or pass. I mean, GDP is better than Monstrat Ruiz, and Buys looked like a plus 300 dog to one of the most basic fighters ever. So DePaula should win. I will say that if Buys wants to grapple, I think that she probably could hit takedowns because I think Buys is a little bit.
The thing.
Buys is probably the better overall grappler. Like pre-UFC, she showed some takedown defense and stuff, but meanwhile, DePaula kind of collapses at the first hit at takedown. So if Buys comes in with the right game plan to wrestle, she should win, but I doubt she does, and it'll probably just end up like a 50-50 striking match. So I think this fight to end by split decision was like plus 3 something, so might as well take
that. Where is that? Where are you seeing?
DraftKings. I think it's plus 350, not gonna lie.
DraftKings stepping up the prop offerings, huh?
Yeah, they have a lot, honestly. All right, we're gonna move on to the co-main event, one of your most anticipated bouts. We have in the bantamweight division the favorite Yahya-Kang coming off of a 2-year layoff, taking on Hani Yahya.
Hey.
All right, so tell us why you like the Korean in this matchup.
Yeah, so great matchup here. Definitely deserve co-main event. Both these guys, I mean, looking back at Kang Ho Kang's UFC career, he's got some cool fights. Like that fight against Michinori Tanaka, amazing fight. I loved it. It was a grappler's delight. It's insane. And the Ramos fight, he's had some great fights in UFC. But I don't know what it is with the guy. I don't know if it's he went to the military service and then, after he came back, like not the same anymore. I don't know what's going on. But this Yahya-Kang, the guy that we've seen, didn't do anything. You see that last fight against Lou?
Yeah.
He didn't do anything.
Not a whole lot happened, yeah.
Nothing. That was the most insane lay and pray I've ever seen in my life. No, that's a lie.
Same versus Davis. Same thing.
It's just lay and pray. Nothing. He's not doing anything. He's had good luck in his split decisions. 3-1 in split decisions. I better just delight. But he fought. Hani Yahya is the best under 155 grappler that's ever been in the UFC. Okay, the best. Okay,
Nah,
the best.
I don't know who is, but that just doesn't sound right.
Hani Yahya is the best
Juicy
grappler.
Formiga is better than him.
No, no, he's not. No,
Yeah,
he's
he
not.
is.
No, he's not. Ronnie Yahya would do bad things to Juicy Formiga if they straight up grappled. Are you kidding me?
I don't think
You have
so.
no idea.
Well, he
You
has a
have no.
little bit of size
Dude,
on him,
I'm
but
telling you, when I started jiu-jitsu, Ronnie Yahya was like in ADCC 2007. And he, like, on the podium. This guy is an animal on the mat, okay? I remember he got his arm snapped, I think, too, in the Kimura. And he was, because he just didn't want to tap to like some dude that he didn't think should beat him. And he's like, whatever, just let the dude snap his arm. So Ronnie Yahya's a bad
he
dude.
lost though. He lost that match or his arm broke, right?
Who cares, dude? What the hell? Are you crazy? You ever snap somebody's arm? That shit is
A
savage.
few.
Yeah, a few. Anyway, Ronnie Yahya is the best grappler ever, right? At that weight class. He's 10-2. What is he 10-2? Who is he 10-2 against? John.
Asians.
Hey, against Asian fighters, Ronnie Yahya is 10-2, okay? And the Kid Yamamoto fight, rest in peace, kid. Amazing, another guy back when I first started watching MMA, he was like a superhero. He lost that 5-year soccer kick, so that doesn't even count. So that could be 10-1. But all jokes aside, okay, all jokes aside, Rani Yahya is going to. I mean, you see the length of Kung Ho Kang's neck. Kung Ho Kang, he's not a good striker. He's never
he's
struck.
he's better than Yada though.
No, he has never struck for extended periods of time on the feet ever,
Yeah, but
ever.
he's better
And
than
as
Yaya.
no, he has a terrible posture on the feet. Yahya throws heat. Yahya throws hard back
Yeah, but
at you.
I mean, if a kickboxing fight, you got to pick.
Listen, Yahya
Him.
throws hard. No, because Yahya is going to land the harder punches. Yahya doesn't care. He goes nuts. He's gonna run forward. He's gonna throw power shots, and he's gonna take Kung Ho Kang down.
Do you remember how badly Ricky Simone outstruck Hanayaya? Like
Oh,
he like dropped him like several times with punches.
Ricky Simone's a lot better than Kung Ho Kang.
For sure, but like
A lot
not in
better, dude.
striking maybe. I think they're pretty
Oh,
comparable in
Kung Ho
striking.
Kang. This is not comparable. The resumes of Kung Ho Kang and Ronnie Yahya, they are not comparable.
I agree. I agree
They're
with that.
not comparable.
But
Ronnie Yahya has never been an underdog.
is that true?
When's
No,
the last
he
time
was
this
a
guy's
dog
been an
to
underdog?
Ricky Simone, like I just said.
Barely. He was like even. It was like pick him. And now he's a dog to Kung Yo Kong after a 2-year layoff. How?
He
Doesn't
was
make any sense, dude.
minus 112 versus Luke Sanders, so a slight favorite to Luke Sanders.
Just doesn't make any sense that Kung Yo Kong, he's not a good striker. He does not have a good jab. He's just long for the weight class. He's never hurt someone with a punch. Never.
Nah,
Who has he hurt
he
someone
rocked
with a
Tanaka.
punch?
He rocked Tanaka with punches.
Tanaka has no striking.
Yeah, well, Yaya's not that far off. I'll tell you that. All right, so
No, Yahya's improved as a striker. You
I'll
should
say
put
one
some
thing
respect
is
on
that
his name.
the Kang does get leg kicked a lot. If Yaya were to attack leg
Yahya
kicks,
trains at ATT. What do they do? Kick
yeah,
calves, dude.
but he's an old Brazilian grappler. He's not going to just invent this new aspect to his game
Brazilians
at
kick calves, dude.
35 years old. I mean, it would be a good game plan, but I mean, I am in agreement with most things you said. I don't think that Yaya should be the underdog because if he's winning this fight, it's going to be in rounds 1 and 2. He does kind of slow down as the fight goes on.
Look. Let me interject one more time, okay? People say that, right? Ronnie Yahya slows down, right? Okay, so he is 6-7 in decisions. Terrible. That's not good, right? That's not good. Kung Yo Kong is 4-5 in decisions.
Right, but
He slows down.
no, I don't know about that.
And he's 3-1 in split decisions.
Right, but we just saw
Ronnie
Yaya.
Yahya should be clearly
Yaya
the
pretty
favorite.
comfortably beat Barzola in the first 2 rounds and still slow down, like, pretty heavily,
Ronnie
like
Yahya should be clearly the favorite
okay,
over
alright,
Kang
yeah,
Kang.
I don't totally disagree with that, but Yahya did have, like, a pretty easy fight against Barzola, like, he was top positioning him most of the
Easy.
time, and he still get
Who's ever beat Barzola easy?
Kevin Aguilar.
Barzola beat Evloev.
I mean, he didn't beat him.
Yes, he did.
Um, all I'm saying is that you shouldn't be too confident in a 35-year-old Brazilian guy who does slow down in round 3. I think Kang is the better striker, but he doesn't have great takedown defense. Um, but I could see one thing. I did see this in the Tanaka fight. Tanaka was going for like those low single legs with the head on the outside, and that allowed Kang to kind of sweep around and take the back. And Yaya does go for those singles with his head on the outside. So as long as he doesn't get
There's
his back,
no way Kang Kang
he's not
will
going to keep.
out grapple
Yeah, I agree that I
Ronnie
agree. He's not going to
Yahya.
he's not going to keep the back,
It's
but he still might
impossible.
he's not gonna keep the back, but he might get his back taken. I think I would just bet Kang KO rather than his money line. Like, I don't see a way. Like, Kang's not really a great minute winner. Like you said, he's not really active. He doesn't do a whole lot. So, like, Kang knockout probably covers, I think, a lot of his win condition. So just take that instead of money line. But I agree, Yaya should be the favorite. Um,
And Kang's second fight in this hemisphere. FYI. Record is 1-1
that's
in
actually a
this
decent thing. Is
hemisphere.
yeah, he hasn't fought much outside of Asia. But
2-year layoff.
all right, that's only 20 months, not quite 2 years. All right, we'll move on with that. I think we're both in agreement that Yaya. I'm not as confident that Yaya will win. But I do think he should be the slight favorite.
How is he not the favorite? Come on.
He might get knocked out in round 3, like Danilo Marks a couple weeks back.
This guy's never knocked someone out.
Yeah, but I think he does hit harder. I think he's the better striker. He's got way quicker at this stage of their career, so I think it could happen.
He has 2 knockout wins. One is by doctor stoppage.
Yeah, but you can't just tell everything from the record. Like I said, better striker at this stage of their career. All right, that's enough of this fight. That's enough. We're gonna move on to the main event, and it's in the middleweight division. We got Strickland as the favorite,
Other
minus.
one was a corner stoppage. That's crazy. There's
Wow.
no way Kang's finishing Ronnie Yahya.
All
None.
right.
Zero.
I don't know. I don't know. So like
Zero.
5 unit max bomb
Ronnie
on.
Yahya, no scorecards should be like minus 500. All right, we can move on.
All right. Main event, Strickland minus 210, Hall plus 180. I'll let you get your thoughts out there on this one first.
Okay. So I mean, solid-ish main event. I think this is a pretty good fight between two
Yikes.
guys. Solid-ish main event. I mean, in the sense that I'd rather see these guys fight 5 rounds than 3. So,
Really? I don't know.
hey, look, listen. Will I be watching this? 0% chance. I'm gonna be watching the Superior Promotion, putting on their fight card. 0 chance that I'm watching the UFC main event today. But I think it's, I mean, it's not the worst fight in the world. You got Strickland, who, I mean, I still don't. I mean, Strickland's been around for a long time. I think, Strickland basically, he got the reputation. I think this guy got turned pro when he was like 16, 17. And he eventually got into UFC because people were like, yo, look, you got to get this guy in the UFC because he's insane. All he wants to do is fight. And like, you need to get him into UFC. Like, he had just this like crazy reputation. Like, he's been in the UFC since 2014. He's been in there for forever, and he started off in the welterweight division. He was a really good prospect, and he's had a few hiccups here and there, but overall he's kept pretty clean in most of his performances. He comes into his fight against Hall though. When I'm looking at some of the tendencies that Strickland has, where he's like sometimes throwing punches, where he's like on the wrong hip, like he's like kind of just like teetering back and forth throwing these shots, and he's like not really setting his feet, and his chin's in the air and his hands are down. I think it helps him for sure to land some unconventional shots and a lot of shots. As evident in that Brendan Allen fight where he just landed a crazy amount of punches in a really short amount of time for while that fight lasted. But here against Hall, I think he's going to put himself into a lot of danger because one, he has some familiarity and he's like, hey, look, like, if you give Uriah Hall space, he could really mess you up. So he's definitely going to come with the pressure, I think. But there's going to be big opportunities, I feel, for Hall to land, big punches, especially on Sean Strickland. And it's just going to become a matter of how composed does Uriah Hall stay under the blitz attack of Sean Strickland, because Strickland is out there, I don't know if you want to call him a point fighter, but he's definitely a volume based guy. So um no, that's his finish would come by attrition. So there's going to be clashes here, and that's why I think the under here is maybe interesting, because Hall, most of his wins have come by knockout. So if he wins, I think, there's a good chance that, he's landing a big shot. And if Strickland wins, I think it's because he grinded Hall down. You saw Hall wilt under the pressure of Paulo Costa and some other guys. But, I think he's definitely maturing in his career. But, he's a guy he's liable to like smell his own, like bask in the glory of like the win of over like Chris Weidman. He's like, oh yeah, like I break people's bones, like I'm such a great striker, like that's my defense and all that. So I mean, you got to build the fight, and it is what it is. I think Strickland will put the pressure on him, maybe could find a finish, but I'm not as high on Sean Strickland as most. I bet Jocko against him, and it was a terrible bet because he just hunted him down in this small cage. Though I think he has some kind of advantage, but I think he should probably look to get Hall to the ground at some point, and wear him down that way, and then maybe look to finish with strikes. But I think at minus 210, I think that's too a bit too wide.
Yeah, I agree with a lot there. And one thing you said is that Strickland's defense isn't the best. He kind of relies on his chin at times, and he can do that against like forgiving punchers like he's been fighting. But I mean, I'm getting a little echo, Ozzy. Can you mute your mic real quick? Um, but Hall obviously a much harder striker than the guys that Strickland's been fighting recently. But I just think if you look at Hall's past few fights, I mean, there's so much like negativity. I think he lost round one to Jocko, came back and won that. Got completely destroyed by Costa. Was losing to Bevon Lewis. He was losing rounds to Anderson Silva. I mean, I just don't think there's a lot of positivity in his recent fights. I mean, the guy still has some power in his hands. He can come back from losing fights. Um, but he's going to need to win by knockout here. I just don't see any way he can win rounds against Strickland. Strickland has so much better volume. The only way I see Hall landing or winning rounds is off of knockdowns, but I don't think that's too likely. I think that Hall's just going to be a step behind. Strickland's going to be pumping volume in his face the entire time. And I do have a bet on this fight. 1 unit Strickland, 4-5 decision at plus 135. I think that should be like a 50% outcome here. I really don't think Hall has a good chance to win the fight if it goes to the cards. And I don't think that Strickland's going to finish him in rounds 1, 2, or 3 because Strickland kind of takes his time and picks his opponents apart. And I just don't think that he's really going to come at Hall that aggressively early on. We might see a late finish here on either side, honestly. Fight ends by knockout minus 130. That's probably a better way to play the under or the fight doesn't go decision, because I don't see it ending by sub here. So I like Strickland here. I'm not in love with minus 210 for the money line, but I found a prop that I like. So I'm not too intrigued by this fight. I don't think Hall is like a 5 round fighter. Kind of pissed off they gave him 5 rounds against Anderson Silva. Would have been an easy walk-off victory for Silva, but they made that 5 rounds for some unforsaken reason. Um, so not too excited about this one. Like Ozzy said, the Bellator fights are probably going to be on the number one screen for most people. So that's going to do it for this podcast. You want to do any quick recap thoughts? You want to quick mention any bets you like besides Hani Yahya?
I mean, Ronnie Yahya. I mean, I think definitely a good bet. Um, let's see. No, I think the people, the real ones
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, yeah. Don't, you got to listen to the whole thing and to get the all the bets. You can't get like a synopsis at the end.
I think on Bellator though, to give you a quick Bellator, what I'm thinking. I mean, Maz Burnell, that line's moved a bit. Patricio versus AJ McKee. I mean, AJ McKee's a bad dude. Like, I definitely would not want to fight him. I lean under. I think if I'm gonna bet that fight, I'd only bet Patricio. That guy's the GOAT. But potentially the under because AJ McKee's just so wild, man. So I think I'd lead under there. And that's probably, and then I'm looking at Gonzalez. Right, that's all I'll say.
Yep. Yep, we're in agreement there. If you like McKee, just play him by knockout at plus 450. I don't see him submitting or winning rounds off of Patricio. Under's not bad though. It probably does end by finish. I'm picking Patricio there, and he is now the slight underdog on Bet Online. So look out for plus money on Patricio. Um, and that's gonna do it for this podcast. I'll come at you guys tomorrow with the Martian MMA episode, breaking down these fights again. And thanks for Ozzy for joining me once again. This is gonna be our consistent podcast now. Try to get these out every single week and keep dropping some knowledge. Our first episode was a gigantic success, 16 units profit across the two of us. Um, yep. Hope you all enjoy the fights on Saturday. Hope you all enjoy the Bellator fights, and hope you all win some bets.